Welcome to Allendale Columbia School, an independent school in Rochester, New York that serves students in grades nursery through grade 12. My name is Jennifer Trong, and I am fortunate enough to teach second grade on our 33-acre campus, surrounded by gorgeous trees, a beautiful nature trail, and a babbling creek. It provides a serene environment where our students learn, grow, and explore each day. Our campus provides a natural backdrop for many stories of inquiry and curiosity. The story I am excited to share with you began at the start of the school year when we raised, tagged, and released monarch butterflies in our local community, and learned how to care for the bees that inhabit our school's newly constructed beehive. It was from these learning experiences that my students' two essential questions emerged. Why do pollinators matter to our world, and what can we do to help them? From there, my students researched bees and other local pollinators. They became explorers and discovered that local and regional native bees are declining in number due to colony collapse disorder. This prompted them to take action. My students created a business called Pollen Paradise with a heartfelt mission statement.
At Pollen Paradise, we create and sell handmade bee items to raise money and awareness to save the bees.
They sold their handmade products to our school's students, families, and teachers during their grand opening. My students were thrilled to raise $400 to donate to New York Bee Sanctuary, a regional organization that protects bees across the U.S. Raising awareness continued to be an underlying goal throughout this next activity. Students learned about the unique bee diversity that exists at the Grand Staircase Escalante National Monument in southern Utah. I stumbled upon Matt Kelly's video titled "The Bees of Grand Staircase Escalante," which I shared with my students, along with images of some of the most brilliantly colored bees that exist at GSE, using images from a National Geographic Online article about GSE's bee species in hopes to pique their curiosity and hone their observational skills. This geological perspective led to provocative observations and questions from my second grade explorers about what they saw and heard in the video and noticed in the National Geographic bee photographs. I collected students' observations and questions so they could reflect on what they learned and what they wanted to know. Together, students began to communicate to understand that the fate of GSE's bee hotspot is uncertain due to possible increased human activity. This threat strengthened my students' ecological perspective, which led to empathy and their agency for change to kick in. Two students asked, "How can we help the bees at GSE like we helped the bees with our business?" which was a great hook into what happened next. My students' questions sparked curiosity to further explore GSE. They became geographers and located Utah on a map. I used Tour Builder to show students the distance between our school and GSE in Utah to deepen their geological perspective. We read the book Cactus Hotel by Brenda Giberson to learn many facts about a fragile desert ecosystem through the life of a cactus from seedling to full grown. My student explorers then observed and compared an assortment of photographs of the biodiversity that exists in three ecosystems: the rainforest, the desert, and the temperate forest. I asked my students what would happen to an ecosystem if a plant or animal species disappeared. They were able to articulate the undesirable impacts on the biodiversity of an ecosystem by making connections with the human and natural worlds using their new learning. After that, I referenced a quote from Matt Kelly's video that mentions how some people think of deserts as a wasteland, which my students strongly disagreed with. They used what they learned about a desert ecosystem to strengthen their communication skills and argue ways that different plants, animals, and insects in a desert rely on each other for survival. At this point, my students brainstormed how they felt about the shrinking of the land at GSE to build empathy for the natural world. Feelings ranged from sadness to determination. One thing was certain: they wanted to play an active role in sharing their voice to raise awareness and protect the flora and fauna at GSE. My students were inspired by a National Geographic Online resource to craft a letter to the senators of Utah, informing them of the importance of protecting the unique bee species and biodiversity at GSE, and convincing them to reverse the shrinking of the land. Exploring this political perspective is where my students shined. They learned that their individual and collective voices have the possibility of making a powerful impact to protect the natural world. By writing letters to the senators, my students assumed responsibility for the natural world on a regional scale and learned that they can help minimize negative effects on the diverse plant and animal species that exist beyond their local community through their own actions. Using the National Geographic Framework for Learning as a guide to design activities like this support my professional goals of providing opportunities for my students to be explorers and learn how humans impact wildlife. Allowing my students to lead their learning journey through inquiry taught me that they have the innate desire to want to protect nature, whether it's locally, regionally, or globally. By continuing to use the National Geographic Framework for Learning as a tool to enhance my teaching, I hope to inspire my students to share their voices and be responsible activists for our planet.
We are curious.
We are responsible.
We are adventurous. We are explorers!